The massive alien fleet moved through the darkness of space like a pack of metal wolves hunting for prey. 10,000 warships filled the void, their black hulls covered with scars from 47 different worlds they had conquered. Each ship was bigger than Earth's largest cities, carrying weapons that could burn entire planets to ash. Admiral Korthvax stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge. His 6 arms moved across control panels while his 4 eyes studied the reports about their next target. The humans of Earth looked so weak, so helpless. Their technology was laughable compared to the mighty Vorthak Empire. "Look at this," he said to his officers, his voice deep and rumbling. "These creatures still use chemical rockets to barely escape their own planet's gravity. They split atoms for power like children playing with fire. They have never even left their tiny solar system." The other aliens on the bridge made clicking sounds that passed for laughter among their species. They had heard this story before, on 47 other worlds. The pattern was always the same. Find a weak planet, demand surrender, crush any resistance, take everything valuable, and move on to the next target. "How long until we reach their system?" Korthvax asked his navigation officer. 6 of their days, Admiral. Their sun is already visible on our long-range sensors. "Good. Send the usual message when we arrive. Demand complete surrender within 1 rotation of their planet. If they refuse, we demonstrate our power on their moon, then destroy their military bases. After that, they always give up." The Imperial fleet had perfected this method over 5 decades of conquest. They would arrive with overwhelming force, terrify the local population into submission, then strip the world of everything useful. Minerals, technology, slaves, food, everything had value to the Empire. Far away on the blue and green world they were approaching, General Kim Dae-ho sat in a deep underground bunker carved into the heart of a mountain. The room around him was filled with screens showing data from sensors scattered throughout the solar system. His face was calm, but his eyes held the weight of 50 years of preparation. "Sir, the deep space monitoring stations are picking up the fleet," reported Lieutenant Park Soo-jin from her position at a control panel. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she worked. "Exactly 10,000 ships, just like the refugee told us there would be." Kim Dae-ho nodded slowly. The refugee, that was what they called the dying alien who had crashed into Earth's Pacific Ocean 50 years ago. Most of the world never knew it had happened. The alien's ship had been recovered in secret, its pilot barely alive but desperate, to deliver a warning. The creature had lived just long enough to tell them about the Vorthak Empire, about the unstoppable fleet that moved from world to world, conquering everything in its path, about how Earth was on their list, marked for invasion in exactly 50 years. Then the alien had died, leaving behind only its warning and the wreckage of technology far beyond anything humans had ever seen. "Has the president been informed?" Kim Dae-ho asked. "Yes, sir. She's being moved to the secure bunker in Colorado. All world leaders are being relocated to protected sites. The civilian population has no idea what's coming." Kim Dae-ho stood up and walked to a large window that looked out over the command center. Hundreds of people worked at stations throughout the massive underground facility. They were the best and brightest humanity had to offer, all working toward this single moment. 50 years, he said quietly. 50 years of building, planning, and hiding. Every space mission, every new technology, every breakthrough. It was all for this day. The world above had no idea what lay beneath their feet. While people went about their daily lives thinking humans were alone in the universe, the greatest construction project in history had been taking place in secret. Entire asteroid bases had been built and hidden. Massive space stations had been constructed in the shadows of planets. Weapons that could crack moons had been positioned throughout the solar system. "Sir," called out Commander Park Ji-hoon from the tactical station. "All defensive positions are reporting ready status. The stealth fields are holding. The aliens won't see anything until we want them to." Kim Dae-ho smiled for the first time in months. The Vorthak Empire had made one critical mistake. They had told the refugee exactly when they would arrive, thinking no one would be left alive to use that information. They had no idea that their future victims had been given 50 years to prepare. Signal all stations, Kim Dae-ho ordered. Activate Protocol 7. It's time to show these aliens what happens when they underestimate humanity. Throughout the solar system, hidden bases began powering up their weapons. Space stations that had been invisible for decades prepared to reveal themselves. The asteroid belt, which looked like random floating rocks, began to move with purpose. Every piece of space debris, every seemingly empty patch of vacuum held deadly surprises. The Vorthak fleet continued its approach, confident in their superior numbers and technology. They had no idea they were flying directly into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. Earth was ready, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. The Vorthak fleet entered Earth's solar system like a swarm of angry metal hornets. Their communication arrays lit up with power as they prepared to send their standard message to the helpless world below. Admiral Korthvax had done this 47 times before, and it always went the same way. "Open all channels," he ordered. His communications officer. "Send the message on every frequency these primitives might be using." His deep voice boomed across space, reaching every radio, television, and satellite around Earth. "Creatures of the third planet, I am Admiral Korthvax of the Vorthak Imperial Fleet. You will surrender your world immediately and submit to Imperial rule. You have 24 of your hours to comply. Refuse and your species will be wiped from existence." The bridge crew waited for the usual response. Panicked radio chatter, desperate pleas for mercy, or sometimes just terrified silence. Instead, something happened that had never occurred in the Empire's long history of conquest. A massive space station appeared out of nowhere near Jupiter's orbit. The alien sensors went crazy, alarms blaring throughout the flagship as the station materialized where empty space had been just moments before. It was huge, easily as large as an Imperial dreadnought, and it had been completely invisible until this exact moment. "How is that possible?" Korthvax demanded, his four eyes wide with shock. "Our sensors show nothing there." "Sir, I don't know," his sensor operator replied, panic creeping into his voice. "It just appeared, like it was never hiding, like it just decided to exist." From the mysterious station came a calm, steady voice that spoke in perfect Vorthak. "This is Fortress Sol to the approaching fleet. I am Captain Lee Min-ho of the Earth Defense Force. You have entered our solar system without permission. You have one opportunity to turn around and leave. We strongly recommend you take it." The bridge fell silent for a moment before erupting in harsh alien laughter. The humans had built one station and thought they could threaten 10,000 warships. It was like a mouse challenging a dragon. "Scan their station," Korthvax ordered. "Show me their weapons." The tactical officer worked frantically at his controls before looking up in confusion. "Sir, I'm detecting no weapon systems at all. No missile tubes, no energy cannons, no shields. It appears to be completely defenseless." This brought even more laughter from the crew. These humans were even more pathetic than their intelligence reports had suggested. They had built a giant metal box in space and thought it would frighten the mighty Imperial fleet. Admiral Korthvax decided to teach them a lesson they would remember in their final moments. "Target their moon," he commanded. "Full power demonstration. Shot. Show them what happens to worlds that defy the Empire." The flagship's main weapon began to charge, a process that took several minutes to reach full power. The massive cannon was designed to crack continents and boil oceans. A shot like this had brought 47 worlds to their knees. "Weapon charged and ready, Admiral," reported the weapons officer. "Fire." A beam of pure crimson energy erupted from the flagship, bright enough to be seen by the naked eye from Earth. The destructive force raced through space toward the pale white moon, carrying enough power to blast a crater the size of a city into its surface. The beam struck something invisible and simply vanished. On the bridge of Fortress Sol, Captain Lee Min-ho watched the alien weapon discharge harmlessly against Earth's hidden defenses. The lunar defense grid had absorbed the energy completely, storing it for later use in humanity's own weapons. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Choi Hee-jin from her station. "Their demonstration shot was completely absorbed by the grid. All energy has been converted and stored. Shall we respond?" Lee Min-ho smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had been waiting patiently for his prey to walk into the perfect trap. Not yet, Lieutenant. Let them come closer. They need to see everything before this ends. Back on the Imperial flagship, chaos had replaced confidence. The sensor operators were frantically checking their equipment, unable to understand how their most powerful weapon had simply disappeared without effect. "Sir?" The tactical officer called out, his voice shaking. "I'm detecting some kind of energy barrier around their moon, but it's like nothing in our databases. The technology is completely unknown." Admiral Korthvax felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Doubt. These humans had just absorbed a planet-killing weapon like it was nothing more than sunlight. How was that possible? From a species that barely had spaceflight. "Charge weapons again," he ordered. "Target their planet directly this time." "Admiral," his first officer said quietly, "perhaps we should reconsider. If they can defend against our main cannon—" "No," Korthvax roared. "We are the Vorthak Empire. We have conquered 47 worlds. We will not be intimidated by one pathetic human station." But even as he spoke the words, he could see doubt spreading through his crew. For the first time in their military careers, they had encountered something that could stop their ultimate weapon. The humans had not begged, had not panicked, had not even seemed surprised. They had been waiting. From Fortress Sol came another transmission, still in that calm, patient voice. "Admiral, you have been warned. Leave now, while you still can." The Vorthak fleet moved deeper into the solar system, their confidence shaken but their pride refusing to let them retreat. Admiral Korthvax had ordered his ships to spread out in attack formation, preparing to overwhelm the single human station. With pure numbers, 10,000 ships against one, the odds were still clearly in their favor. "Maintain course toward the third planet," he commanded. "Deploy scanner drones throughout the system. I want to know everything about their defenses before we begin the final assault." The small robotic scouts spread out like metal insects, racing toward every planet and moon in the system. Their job was simple: find every human base, every weapon, every hiding place. Then the Imperial fleet would destroy them all at once. What the drones found instead changed everything. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, his voice barely a whisper. "You need to see this. All of it." The main display screen flickered to life, showing readings from across the entire solar system. At first, Korthvax saw exactly what he expected: empty space dotted with planets and asteroids. Then the computer began processing the drone data, and the impossible became visible. Massive defense platforms shimmered into existence around Mars, their metal surfaces gleaming as they dropped their invisibility shields. Jupiter's orbit suddenly filled with enormous space stations, each one bristling with weapons that dwarfed anything in the Imperial fleet. Saturn's rings began moving in perfect formation, revealing that what looked like ice and rock were actually thousands of hidden military bases. But it was the asteroid belt that made Admiral Korthvax's blood run cold. The entire belt was moving. Every single rock, from small pebbles to mountain-sized chunks of metal and stone, was shifting position in a coordinated dance. As he watched in growing horror, the asteroids began opening up like metal flowers, revealing weapon systems inside, each one. The belt wasn't a random collection of space debris. It was the largest minefield in galactic history. "How many?" he asked, his voice cracking. The sensor officer's hands shook as he worked. "Sir, I'm counting over 50,000 individual weapon platforms. Every asteroid has been hollowed out and armed. Every planet has orbital defense grids. There are bases on moons we didn't even know existed." On Earth's moon, Dr. Song Jae-wook stood in the observation dome of Luna Base, watching through reinforced windows as the alien fleet finally realized the truth. Around him, other scientists and military personnel watched the displays showing the systematic revelation of humanity's greatest secret. 50 years, he said to his colleague, Dr. Yoon Subin. 50 years since the Keithvar refugee crashed in the Pacific. Dr. Yoon nodded, remembering the day that had changed everything. The dying alien had lived just long enough to warn them about the coming invasion, to tell them exactly when and how it would happen. Most importantly, it had left behind technology that humanity had spent 5 decades learning to understand and improve. "Do you think the refugee knew this would happen?" she asked. "That we would turn his warning into This? Dr. Song smiled grimly. I think he hoped we would. His people never had the chance to prepare. We did. The refugees' warning had been specific. In 50 Earth years, a massive Imperial fleet would arrive to conquer the planet. The alien had described their tactics, their weapons, their arrogance. He had given humanity the greatest gift possible, time to prepare, and humanity had used every second of it. Every space mission for the past 5 decades had been part of the plan. Every technological breakthrough had been quietly applied to the defense project. While the world above lived normal lives, thinking they were alone in the universe, the greatest construction project in history had been taking place in secret. Command, this is Luna Base, Dr. Song spoke into his communicator. All lunar weapons platforms are online and ready. The gravity well generators are fully operational. From the central command bunker on Earth, General Kim Dae-ho's voice crackled back. Acknowledged, Luna Base, all stations report ready. The trap is complete. The general opened a channel to every defensive position in the solar system. All units, this is command. 50 years ago, we were warned that this day would come. 50 years ago, we began preparing for it. Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you give humanity time to get ready. Admiral Korthvac stared at his tactical display in complete shock. The readings were impossible to believe. The humans hadn't just built a few defensive installations. They had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. Every piece of space debris was a weapon. Every moon was a military base. Every planet was protected by defense grids that his computers couldn't even fully analyze. Sir, his first officer said quietly, I recommend immediate retreat. We're not facing a primitive world. We've flown directly into the most sophisticated military installation in the galaxy. But retreat was no longer an option. As the Admiral watched, the space around his fleet began to change. The asteroids were moving into position, forming walls and corridors that would channel the Imperial ships exactly where the humans wanted them to go. The massive space stations around the outer planets were powering up weapons that registered energy levels beyond anything in Vorthak databases. We're trapped, whispered the tactical officer. They've been herding us deeper into the system like animals into a cage. Admiral Korthvac finally understood the truth that would haunt him for the rest of his life. This wasn't a battle between a mighty empire and a primitive world. This was a carefully planned execution, 50 years in the making, and he had led his entire fleet directly into it. The battle began at exactly 1432 Earth Standard Time and lasted 5 minutes and 17 seconds. Admiral Korthvac had barely finished giving the order to attack when the humans showed him why they had waited 50 years for this moment. The first wave of Earth's response came from weapons the aliens had never seen before and couldn't understand. Blue energy beams erupted from the hidden asteroid bases, cutting through Imperial ship shields like hot knives through butter. The Vorthak shields, which had protected them through 47 conquests, simply melted away under the strange new weapons. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant flashes of light as the mysterious energy tore through their hulls. What are those weapons? Korthvac screamed at his science officer. I don't know, sir. The energy signatures don't match anything in our databases. It's like they're attacking the very atoms that make up our shields. The quantum disruptors had been humanity's first breakthrough after studying the refugees' crashed ship. Human scientists had taken the alien technology and made it better, more efficient, more deadly. What had taken the Kethvar centuries to develop, humans had improved in just 50 years. But the energy weapons were only the beginning. Massive gravitational fields began forming around clusters of Imperial ships. The artificial gravity wells, generated by devices hidden throughout the asteroid belt, pulled the alien vessels toward each other with irresistible force. Metal screamed against metal as ships that had been flying in formation were suddenly crushed together like tin cans in a giant's fist. From the Lunar Command Center, General Kim Dae-ho watched the systematic destruction with cold satisfaction. Every weapon, every tactic, every defensive position had been planned and tested for decades. The aliens were not fighting a desperate last stand. They were being executed by the most advanced military force in the galaxy. All fighter wings deploy Pattern 7, he ordered into his communicator. "Show them what our pilots can do." Throughout the solar system, hidden bays opened in asteroids, moons, and space stations. Swarms of small fighters poured out like angry hornets from disturbed nests. But these were not ordinary fighters with human pilots. They were controlled by artificial intelligence systems that could think faster than any biological brain. Lieutenant Commander Han So-young sat in the cockpit of her fighter, leading the only squadron with human pilots. Around her, thousands of AI-controlled ships moved in perfect coordination, executing maneuvers that would have killed any living pilot from the extreme forces involved. "Control, this is Tiger Lead," she reported over the radio. "The AI squadrons are performing beyond all expectations. They're not just following their programming, they're learning and adapting in real time." The artificial intelligence fighters moved like schools of deadly fish through space, coordinating their attacks with inhuman precision. They anticipated the alien ships' movements before the aliens themselves knew what they were going to do. Every shot hit its target. Every maneuver was perfect. Every formation was unbreakable. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Korthvax watched his mighty fleet being torn apart by enemies he couldn't even see clearly. The small human fighters moved too fast for his gunners to track, appearing and disappearing, like ghosts. His massive warships, designed to fight other capital ships in slow grinding battles, were helpless against the swarm tactics. "Sir, we've lost 60% of the fleet," his tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with panic. "The humans aren't just defending, they're hunting us." It was true. The human attacks were too precise, too calculated to be desperate. Defensive measures. Every strike hit exactly the right spot to disable rather than destroy. Ships that should have exploded instead found their weapons offline and their engines dead, drifting helplessly while their crews remained alive. The aliens were being given a demonstration, not a battle. "All ships, full retreat." Korthvax, finally, ordered. Emergency jump to hyperspace immediately. But when his ships tried to escape, they discovered another horrifying truth. The same gravitational devices that had been crushing his fleet were now preventing them from entering hyperspace. The fabric of space itself had been locked down around the entire solar system. They were trapped with nowhere to run. Captain Lee Min-ho's voice cut through the chaos on all Imperial communication channels. "Admiral Korthvax, this is your only warning. Order your remaining ships to stand down immediately, or we will demonstrate why Earth has been known to ancient civilizations as the place where empires come to die." The words sent ice through the Admiral's veins. How did the humans know about the ancient warnings? How did they know that the oldest spacefaring races had legends about a small blue world that destroyed anyone foolish enough to attack it? "Sir," his communications officer called out desperately, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from every human installation. Whatever they've been holding back, they're preparing to use it all." Admiral Korthvax looked at his tactical display and saw the truth that would haunt him forever. Of his 10,000 ships, fewer than 3,000 remained operational. The humans had destroyed or disabled 70% of the most powerful fleet in Imperial history in less than 6 minutes. And they had been holding back the entire time. "All ships cease fire," he whispered into his communicator. "Surrender. We surrender." The silence that followed was more terrifying than the battle had been. Across the solar system, the wreckage of what had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy drifted in the darkness. Of the 10,000 ships that had entered with absolute confidence, fewer than 800 remained intact. The rest were either destroyed completely or floating helplessly with their crews alive but their ships dead. Admiral Korthvax stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by broken equipment and injured officers. His 4 eyes stared at the tactical display that showed the impossible truth. A primitive species had not only defeated the Imperial fleet, but had done so while clearly holding back their full power. The human transmission came directly to his ship, bypassing all Imperial communication. Security like it didn't even exist. General Kim Daeho's calm voice filled the bridge. "Admiral Korthvax, your surviving ships are being granted safe passage to the edge of our system. Your weapons will remain permanently offline, but your life support and navigation systems will function normally. Korthvax found his voice after several moments of shocked silence. Why? Why let us live when you could destroy us all? The answer that came back would echo through Imperial history for generations. Because we need you to carry a message back to your empire. Tell them what you witnessed here today. Tell them that Earth remembers every world you have conquered, every species you have enslaved, every civilization you have destroyed in your march across the galaxy. General Kim Dae-ho's voice grew colder as he continued. Tell them that humanity has been watching from the shadows for 50 years. We know where your fleets patrol. We know where your homeworlds are located. We know your military strengths and weaknesses because we have been studying you while you believed us to be primitive savages. From her station in the underground command center, Lieutenant Park Soo-jin added the final piece of the message. Tell your empire that we are not just defending ourselves anymore. Tell them that the age of Imperial expansion ends here, today. Earth is coming for you. The words hit the alien admiral like physical blows. The humans weren't just defending their world. They were declaring war on the entire Vorthak Empire. But how could one small planet challenge an empire that controlled hundreds of worlds? Dr. Song Jae-wook provided the answer from Luna Base, his voice broadcasting to every surviving Imperial ship. For 50 years we have been building not just defenses but weapons. Ships that your sensors cannot detect. Weapons that your shields cannot stop. We have fleets hidden throughout this galaxy waiting for our signal. It was true. The refugees' warning had included more than just details about the coming invasion. It had provided star charts showing the location of every Imperial world, every military base, every important installation. Humanity had spent 50 years not just preparing to defend Earth, but preparing to take the fight to their enemies. While you have been conquering helpless worlds, Dr. Song continued, we have been studying your tactics, learning your language, infiltrating your communications networks. We know about your slave camps on Vorthak Prime. We know about the genocide on Kethvar 7. We know about every atrocity your empire has committed. Captain Lee Min-ho's voice joined the broadcast from Fortress Sol. Your empire made one critical mistake. You told our refugee friend exactly when you would arrive, thinking no one would survive to use that information. You gave us 50 years to prepare and we used every single day. Admiral Korthvax felt something break inside him as he realized the full scope of humanity's preparation. They hadn't just built defenses. They had been planning a war of liberation that would span the entire galaxy. Every ship he had lost here was nothing compared to what was coming. The liberation fleets are already in position around your major worlds, General Kim Dae-ho announced. Our stealth ships have been watching your home planets for years. When you return with news of your defeat, you will find that Earth's allies are already moving to free every species you have enslaved. The broken Imperial fleet began its long journey home, escorted by human ships that appeared and disappeared at will. The aliens finally understood that they were not being allowed to escape. They were being sent as messengers to announce the beginning of the end. As the last Imperial ship disappeared toward the edge of the solar system, the defense platforms throughout Earth's domain began powering down. But they were not shutting off. They were switching from defensive mode to offensive mode, preparing to support the human fleets that were even now moving against Imperial worlds. Dr. Yoon Subin looked up at the stars from her observation post and smiled. Phase 1 complete. The trap worked perfectly. General Kim Dae-ho nodded as he watched the tactical displays showing human fleets emerging from hiding throughout the galaxy. Signal all liberation forces. Operation Freedom begins now. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you give humanity 50 years to prepare for war. The message had been sent, and the galaxy would never be the same. The age of the Vorthak Empire was over, and the age of human-led liberation had begun. Earth had not just defended itself, it had declared itself the protector of every species that had ever suffered under Imperial rule. The hunters had become the hunted, and there was nowhere left for them to hide.